Hello guys and welcome back to FatbossTV. We're back for more Highmaul raid testing, and today we're showcasing Tectus on Heroic.
He's a very cool boss.
He's a very awesome boss.
It's very chaotic because, like, first you go in and it's just a boss, just the one fella. He's got some mechanics. You deal with it, and then you end up killing him. And you're like, oh, that's it. We're all done now. But then he splits into two. And then those two split into four. So you kind of have 8 bosses and they all do the same mechanics, and there's a lot of insta-kill mechanics in there with a... It gets really fucking chaotic.
It's a complete nightmare.
It's awesome, though, because, like, you can start off with tactics, and then as it goes on and on and on, the tactic becomes just don't fucking die.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fucking cool. Really, really awesome fight.
Let's move into the mechanics. The boss gets a stacking damage increase called accretion. Each application is 5%, and the only way to remove these debuffs is by damaging the boss. And when he's on his own, it's not so much of a problem, but it does become problematic towards the end of the fight where there's multiple bosses, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Now, the most prominent mechanic that the boss does is an ability called Earthen Pillar. This will target a random player and will spawn a huge pillar underneath their ground that will erupt around 3 or 2 seconds after it's picked that location. Now, this ability only ever seemed to pick ranged. We did try to find a magic number, you know, like what you do with like Desecrated Weapon on Garrosh as an example.
Yeah.
But it did always just seem to be a ranged or a healer. So we just had all our ranged and healers stacked outside the raid as far away as possible from the boss, just so the pillars weren't in the way of the encounter. Because not only can you not walk through them, they actually create line of sight.
And they're fucking huge.
And they're huge,
yeah. But yeah, if you do get caught out by one of these pillars, though, it is an insta-death.
You are just dead.
It's not a, oh, you get hit, I cooldowned it, it's fine. No, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunate for you. So, yeah, you got to be very careful with these Earthen Pillars. And, of course, talking about all the bosses later, if you got 8 of them up, you'll have 8 Earthen Pillars at a time.
Yeah.
Have fun with that. Now, another ability the boss does is Fracture, which is pretty much a mini Earthen Pillar. It will, like, target a player's location, and after a shorter amount of time than Earthen Pillar does, it will, like, knock you up and deal some damage to you. It won't insta-kill you, and it won't, like, last forever. It isn't like a giant pillar. It'll just literally pop you up in the air and then go back down. But you can move from it. It is highly recommended that you do move from it, because it does do a fair amount of damage, and, of course, knocking you up is a pain in the ass, so do move from that. Very simple.
Another mechanic that you need to move from is Crystal Barrage. Now, this will target one player in the raid, and it will send a mist, like a red cloud of shit, towards that player that will then chase them for the duration of the debuff. Now, the really annoying thing about this is that the cloud always comes from the boss. So it'll come from the middle of the boss's hitbox, it'll come out, and it'll start chasing that player, which means it kind of fucks over melee a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially towards the end, when potentially 8 ads are all doing this at the same time. So yeah, all you got to do is just make sure that you move away from the raid, especially if you're doing this sort of tactic what we're doing here, where we're sort of stacked up. We made it so when the pillars spawn, we move left, and if you get the cloud shit, you move right. That's the best way to really deal with it.
Now, you may be noticing that the boss has an energy bar that he's kind of just slowly but surely building up throughout the encounter. And what this will do, once he reaches 100 energy, he'll do his, like, big boy ability, which is Tectonic Upheaval. What he'll do, he'll just start slamming on the ground, doing AoE damage to everyone, which is bad. And, of course, the energy will go down, and once the energy's run out, he'll just stop it, and it'll go back up again. However, the interesting thing about this is that you cannot kill the boss at any other point, apart from when he's doing Tectonic Upheaval.
And the same goes when he copies himself.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, even when you have, like, what, 4 of them or whatever up, you can only kill any one of those when they are doing Tectonic Upheaval. And the thing is, Tectonic Upheaval does do a fair amount of damage even when there's only 1 of them up. When there's more and more of them up, luckily most of the time they don't do it together. They seem to be a little bit more staggered, but still, it's kind of really, really vicious, especially with other mechanics coming in. So the main important thing about Tectonic Upheaval, though, is that you can only kill the boss during Tectonic Upheaval. So do try and make it so that when you do want to finish him off, that he's within that period of time, so you can actually kill him and then spawn the 2 new bosses.
And AoE healing at this point, like, you didn't really need to use a big cooldown, but at points, towards the later points of the fight, you really do need to use cooldowns for it, especially when multiple mobs are doing the ability at the same time. Now, that isn't just it. The boss, that's just the boss's mechanics. During this time where he's on his own and he hasn't done his split yet, where he hasn't died yet, he will spawn ads, and he seems to spawn 2 different types. He spawns a Berserker, and this guy will just do nothing but hit your tank, and occasionally will charge to a random player and will deal damage to that player. And on his route there and back, he'll do any damage to any players caught in that line. Doesn't do a lot of damage, it's not a big deal. This guy just needs to be dotted and just die slowly. He's not a priority target by any means. However, the other ad, the Earth Warper, this guy is really important. So this guy will cast something called Gift of Earth, which will create a vortex that will attempt to empower Tectus. It will move over towards him and it will buff him, give him 10 stacks of accretion, which is his damage increase. So it's really, really important that this ability doesn't hit the boss. And you can do this just by intercepting the Vortex. If you do intercept it, you take quite a lot of physical damage, and you're also affected by a debuff called Petrification, which reduces your movement speed, but also makes it if the boss lands a successful melee attack against you, not only will it then just give him the accretion stacks anyway, like he would have got from beforehand, you'll also heal him for a shit ton, and it was healing him for like 5% or even 10% of his maximum health at certain points.
Yeah, so it's very, very, like, there's a couple ways you need to deal with this, and to be honest, the Gift of Earth Vortex was very unclear. It didn't seem to be spawning properly. It kind of just went on the it was just a bit fucked up. But I imagine what's going to be happening is that you'll get someone to go and soak it, like anyone who has a high amount of damage reduction, because you don't particularly want your tanks to soak this Gift of Earth
because
Vortex.
They're just going to heal the boss.
They're just going to heal the motherfucking boss. So exactly, you got to make sure that you send in someone who can absorb it and then run back to the rest of the range group. That seems to be what you roughly want to be doing.
And the reason why you have this guy out of the raid and not directly underneath the boss, of course, that mechanic, but there's also another mechanic where he'll do an AoE cone in front of himself. So it's important that he's not faced towards the melee or even the other tank. That's why he is tanked outside the raid. So you deal with those mechanics. We just kept putting the pillars on the outside of the room and just killed the ads as soon as we possibly can, apart from Berserker. He wasn't really like too significant. Making sure that we had all our red shit being thrown over to the right side, moving the pillars around the left side of the room, and then eventually, once the boss does cast his Tectonic Upheaval, and you have got him low enough, he will die and then he'll split into two.
And it seemed at this point is that when the two other ads, they didn't seem to spawn anymore at this point.
Yeah.
So once you got two bosses, the ads are kind of like, yeah, there's enough bosses there now that you can deal with them. Not sure if that was a bug in the beta or if that's actually an intended mechanic, but that appears to be what was happening on the beta at least.
So these two new bosses that have spawned have the exact same mechanics. They'll still do the pillars, except they'll now be two, and they both come in at the same time. You still have to deal with the fracture, the small circles on the ground, except there'll now be two sets of them. They'll still have the red lines. You still need to make sure that you kite them away from the raid, and they'll both still do Tectonic Upheaval. Now, one thing to note is that you can't have these guys stacked. From this point onwards, any ads that spawn, if you tank them next to each other, they will buff each other. Not only giving them more accretion stacks and making them more difficult to remove, because obviously the only way you can remove them is by doing damage, but they'll also buff each other so their energy regens far quicker, which means they're going to cast Tectonic Upheaval more frequently, which means the raid's going to get absolutely battered and your healer's going to hate you. So the idea is that you split these two guys up and you focus one of them down, while dealing with all the other mechanics that have been thrown in your face. And once you have managed to kill that guy, he'll then split into four, and it's at this point where you can't really avoid the buffing mechanic unless you bring 5 tanks, which just isn't optimal at all. Really, to be honest, I think 3 tanks would actually be a good idea for this boss. We actually only did it with 2, but at this point, you, like I say, you will now have 5 of them, and you'll have to deal with 5 sets of mechanics. So you're going to have to deal with 5 pillars, 5 red line shit, 5 Tectonic Upheavals.
It's at this point where it's pretty much, yeah, every man for themselves.
Yeah, the stack tactic just gets thrown out the window. Where you kite the red shit just gets thrown out the window because the room just becomes a mess. And one thing that we didn't really say that this probably quite important is that the mobs do have less health than the original boss.
Yeah, exactly. So the two mobs have like much less than the first one, and then when they split into 4, they have even less health.
Yeah.
So really, like when they are split into like 4, cleave DPS is really, really nice. Doing a bunch of cleave to them.
Well,
and
I mean, what we
down.
did, we had 3 of them to go on one tank, and the tank that was tanking the previous split, the big previous split, he'd pick up another one.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that you just try and cleave them down as much as you possibly can, and it is actually possible to kill them, well, to get them to 0% health before the Tectonic Upheaval does come in. So as soon as it casts it, they almost die instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea is that you kill off the 4 little lads as soon as you possibly can, without dying, if that's possible, which was horrible, and then you do the exact same on the last one, which is a lot easier.
Yeah, because you've only got 4, then you haven't got 5. And to be honest, during that time between you have like just killed the 4 and you've only got 1 again, you actually might want to take a little bit of time to breathe. If you're nowhere near the enrage timer, you can literally just go, everyone
because
just
it's just him on his own. It's just the boss like it was right at the very start without the ads. So healers could even get their mana back. You can maybe wait for the room to despawn a little bit because the room is just full of fucking pillars.
Yeah, because the pillars just last for a long time. They do eventually despawn, but they last for such a long time.
Yeah, I think they last for like 2 minutes or something crazy.
Yeah, but overall, that's pretty much it. That is the fight. It's fucking hectic. It's so good. Like, I really do like the fights where you go in with like a strat and it's working and it's working. It's like, there gets a point where it's just like, it doesn't even matter
Yeah.
anymore. Like, if you remember on Ragnaros in Firelands with the meteors, there was a tactic for a while, and then in the end it was just like, kite it and just try and kill the motherfucker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really good. I think it's a very, very decent encounter.
But anyway, guys, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as we enjoyed making it. And of course, make sure you drop us a like, and we'll see you on the live stream.
Thanks for watching.
That was a terrible outro.
It was, but we're going to keep it.